Hello, I'm Rachel Sklar, and I am so excited today to be speaking with Kara Cutruzzula, author, journalist, playwright, lyricist, creative in all stripes, and most recently, the author of Do It Today, a book that she's now going to hold up because I don't have it yet. It's coming tonight. Do It Today. I match it. Um, Kara, you are the probably the most inspiring, sort of galvanizing person I know who actually really you live your brand more than really anybody that I've ever met. Kara is a friend and an inspiration. Why this book and why now? The obvious question. Why today and not tomorrow?
Yeah, well, this journal came out of the idea that, you know, I personally need a little bit more urgency to kind of spur on some creative projects, some work projects after a couple of years of feeling like I was treading water. And I did another journal called Do It For Yourself, which was sort of designed to help you work through your creative projects, both from inspiration to overcoming setbacks, rejection, and finishing what you started, which is always something that I have a little bit of trouble with. And so this journal picks up on those themes, but is kind of moving away from we need to be uber productive. We need to fill every day with, meeting after meeting or sort of old markers of productivity, toxic productivity sometimes. And this is sort of designed to just be a little bit more about encouragement for yourself to find your most meaningful work, to find time and space to do that work, and then to share it with other people. So that was the genesis of this one.
And is it a reflection of your own arc over the past 2 years? I'm guessing because it's been kind of a
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there were multiple days where I was just like, what am I doing? When you work for yourself, or when you're an entrepreneur or a creative who's pursuing an art for, full time, and, where you want to do that for full time in the future, you have these days where you're like, maybe there's one thing on the calendar, or you have a little like squishy deadline, and then the day just goes, and then the month goes, and then the year goes, and it's like, what happened? So this was trying to solve a little bit of that problem, and actually just look at the tiny steps you can take each day to move forward and to move closer to your goals. And I even launched a podcast about the same thing because I was like, I'm figuring this out for myself, and hopefully this journal helps other people figure it out. But now I'm talking to people, artists and creatives and writers, about just what they do every day. And it can be like I'm doing 4 loads of laundry, and then I'm arranging a new musical. But I think that balance of how we do like the life stuff and the work stuff has always been really interesting to me.
what can we back up a little bit? Just why don't you tell us about your day? What is your day today? You just published a book yesterday. I assume you have other things
Yeah.
on the go because I've met you.
Yeah, yes, it's no day is the same. So I try to do something different today, which is grouping like all of my people stuff on one day. So chatting with you, and then I'm talking with a friend who I'm acting like as her de facto mentor, like while she undergoes a career change over the next couple months. So we're going to talk like once a month just to sort of see like, is she applying to jobs? Is she reaching out to like old contacts just to kind of like touch base? Um, then I'm interviewing Liz Calloway for my
What?
podcast. So I was, doing research and stuff for that and prepping for that,
Liz
which
Calloway
I'm,
is a extremely accomplished and amazing performer, singer. Somewhere when I had CDs, I had The Story Goes On. Anyhow,
oh,
oh
amazing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Kara and I are bury the lead a little. Kara and I are colleagues from the world of journalism. We originally met when we were both working at the Daily Beast in like the mid aughts, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and reconnected because we were both members of the BMI Musical Theater Workshop because we both love musicals and writing lyrics, and so we have many things in common.
Yeah, and I remember when I was first applying, or maybe I had gotten into the workshop, and I was trying to read everything I could about like what it was going to be like, this like crash course in writing songs, which I had no experience in whatsoever. And I found an article you wrote about your experience, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Rachel in 10 years, and you were very generous with sharing your experience in the workshop and what it was like, and it made me less terrified. I mean, it was still a terrifying experience, but it made me less scared to go forward because you were like, you're going to meet so many great people. It's a lot of fun. So I do remember that from like 5 years ago at this point. So thank you for the encouragement.
See, and I
Live
was
it
like, you know
out.
what? Do it today. Apply today. But really, you didn't need me to tell you that because that's your whole deal.
My
So
shtick.
continue on with your day, and then I would like to like dig in a little bit about what you're talking about toxic positivity, and this book is a response to that because I find that really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, after talking with Liz, I have a call with my publisher and my editor for a third journal that I'm writing, in the process of writing, that is coming out basically this time next year. So, copy for that is due tomorrow and is going to the copy editor on Friday. And so, we're talking to, an illustrator and just having a little planning session. Then I'm getting coffee with a writer friend, like in the neighborhood, someone who I haven't seen since throughout the whole pandemic. And then I'm seeing Cost of Living tonight, a new play at MTC. And so, very, very busy day. Not a typical day for me at all. Most days, I'm still waking up going, what am I doing today? So this was my response to having a pretty lax pub day, as they call it, yesterday. Getting a lot of stuff done, moving, trying to move some things forward. Um, yeah, and in response to the toxic positivity, I think, I would say I'm a pretty optimistic, positive person, or at least that's how I present to the world. I do think, looking at some of the writing I've done over the last 10 years for different outlets, and then in my newsletter, and then in the journal, the first journal, I did have an emphasis before the pandemic on, you got to squeeze every minute out of every day, and you got to get as much done as possible. And now I just feel like if I can do one important thing a day, like that feels like a success. That feels like I'm uh, investing a little bit of time and energy into something that feels worthwhile and that might help me, down the line. I think a lot of people have turned away from that. You have the same hours in the day as Beyonce kind of thinking. It just doesn't. It's not really helpful, and I just don't think it resonates in a post COVID timeline. Work life balance, let's say.
So was this a process for you? Like, at what point did you go from feeling like you wanted to do it all and attacking everything with sort of like the that super optimistic energy that is so clear from sort of from what you put out there? I mean, this is also point out that Kara has a newsletter that's been running for about like five to 7 years
Yeah, 5 years. Yeah.
now, called Brass Ring Daily. Like, you're very focused on being goal oriented, literally grabbing the brass ring, um, hence the name. So what shifted for you, and has your definition of what the brass ring even is shifted?
That's a great question. I hadn't even thought of the fact that I write a newsletter every day about like going for it and reaching your highest goals. Um, yeah, I think that I just got tired, I think I kind of noticed how I felt, especially I would say when I was primarily doing freelance writing, which is just necessitates like a scarcity mindset, and you have to reach out to this editor, you have to pitch these articles, and you're grabbing, grabbing, and it's exhausting, and it also lends itself to overwork and burnout in a way that just other industries might not get that like up close view, because you're just like, okay, I need to, your basically like your well-being, your financial stakes, like all of that is tied to one more article, one more pitch, one more connection. And I would work like, I would like be writing articles overnight, like it would be midnight. I'm like, oh, I got to turn in that draft. And part of that was like, procrastination or poor planning, but also just trying to grab too many things at once and not really in a satisfying way. Like I guess my definition of what work felt meaningful to me changed, especially like when I got into the writing workshop. I was like, oh, I put I put more emphasis and more, I get more satisfaction out of the creative work that I create and share than I did with my, traditional writing and editing work. And I think I just sort of turned a page on that. And, there's a lot of brass rings to reach out and grab when you're trying to write musicals and plays and, publishing books and that sort of thing. But again and again, it's like, I don't know if I just have to learn this lesson over and over again, but it's always about how fun the process is of creating it for me. Like, to be honest, yesterday the book came out and I had friends texting and like, how does it feel? And oh my God, that's so exciting. And like, it's always a letdown. I'm not gonna lie, like it's always, I feel like the moment that something actually comes out, I'm always like, what's the next thing? Which might be at odds with my sort of anti-toxic productivity. But I just think if you're not enjoying it while you do it, then what's the point? Because like the brass ring at the end of it is not going to be as satisfying as you think. So I guess maybe I should change the name of the newsletter to like, the act of reaching for it or the process of reaching for it, because
I love
that's
the
where I get my
newsletter. I
joy.
love it. I find it so inspiring. I mean, I think you're always so refreshing, and a lot of what you talk about, and a lot of what you talk about in this book and do it for yourself is about like overcoming the things that are standing in your way that are in you. Fear of change, right? Self-doubt, sort of fear of putting yourself out there. These are
Mm-hmm.
the main blockers. And as a person who suffers from all three, like every time I get your newsletter and all of the exhortations that you put out into the world, they do speak to me, and they speak to my own, like they remind me that I there are swings I should be taking. So but if you do change the name, I guess I'll just be like, well, from this podcast.
Yeah, of course. I mean, well, I think looking at that's one thing you just mentioned, right? Like fear of change and fear of sort of reaching or getting outside of like the comfortable sort of box that we find ourselves in. I think that happened with my newsletter, that happened with most creative projects, and sometimes that they'll just sort of dwindle or die, or sometimes you can sort of reinvent them or put some more energy into it. But I think that the big swings thing is the moonshots, as I've written about before, which I think is due to come back. Something I didn't really hit that hard or was thinking about over the last couple of years, because as we're just trying to like get through the day, it's a little hard to also be thinking like, what is my huge goal? Like, what is my huge moonshot? Like, what is the biggest swing I can take? But I don't know. I feel that energy again with a lot of people around me, making career changes, buying houses, moving to new cities, like getting fellowships, like all of these sort of big, seemingly uh, groundbreaking things in their lives are happening. And I don't know, it's something I need to remember too. Like, what is the scariest email you can send to someone? Not in an aggressive way, but in like maybe you're asking for something, maybe you're asking for a letter of recommendation or a connection to someone that you wanted to talk to for years. I try to do that when I get the courage, and every time I do, I'm just reminded like nothing bad happens, and only sort of positive momentum occurs. Like there's nothing no one's gonna say like, oh my God, like never talk to me again. So
I mean,
um,
what is the worst thing that's ever happened when you've had an outreach email like that? Sort of putting together.
I think you just maybe don't hear back, and that's fine. I mean, I think that's something else that's sort of changed over the last couple years is like we all should be a little more generous with each other and the other obligations and commitments and priorities that are in someone else's life. So, you know, if I get ignored, I always try to assume that like either it's just not a right fit, which is fine because I don't want someone to sort of begrudgingly say yes. I think like a wishy-washy yes is a lot worse than a very kind no. And so, if I don't hear back, I just think that's, I'm sort of on to the next. Yeah, or you could follow up, or you probably experience this too, and it's something I tell a lot of writer friends or freelance writer friends when they're emailing editors or they don't hear back. And once once a friend hadn't heard back from a couple months about a draft, and they're like, oh my God, this editor hates it, they're going to kill the story. And turns out they were just in Japan. Like, and so that's the sort of excuse that or the reason that I think of for a lot of these things. It's like maybe they're in Japan, and if they're not, maybe it's a metaphorical Japan. And so
I have many
don't
metaphorical Japans keeping me from replying to emails.
well, like just don't overthink uh someone's response, and it doesn't really say anything about you and your work. I think maybe just kind of keeping up that momentum in other ways is always really, really important.
I want to just, you have the book in front of you. So you have some of these beautifully illustrated, yeah,
Yeah.
beautifully illustrated pages that I guess I want to hear about like why you chose some of the themes that you chose and how it helps, how it helped you, how you've seen it help people. Like what is it about these themes that belong in a book?
Yeah. So one of the chapters is called Start Before You're Ready. And I think that speaks to what we've been talking about that, like, I've been guilty of this so many times. Like, I need everything to be perfectly lined up. I need to know exactly, the technical aspects, the personal aspects, how to communicate with these people. Like, I just need all the information, and I could research something to death. I mean, I think this goes for creative projects too. Like, you can spend all your time researching, a book idea or, which agent to reach out to or whatever, but like what is the actual next step that you need to do to move it forward? So this idea of starting before you're ready, and again with just like the smallest possible step. I do not underestimate the power of just like the stupidest next step. I mean, literally, like, let me find that email address for that person who I met 5 years ago who said they might be interested in that thing. Like just the very basic thing to sort of break out of the swirl of, the spiral of negative thoughts or imposter syndrome that happens. And the other idea that I have been thinking a lot about in the journal is this idea to follow the pull. When we're pulled to do these things, like when you were pulled to apply to the BMI workshop, when I was pulled to apply to the same workshop, when you're sort of intrigued by a company or an idea or a person, to just like go with that and not overthink what that might mean in the grand scheme of like your career or your life, or this arc that this narrative that we all create for ourselves. Like, I need my career to go X, Y, and Z. It's more like, what happens if you just follow that impulse? You're gonna go down so many different avenues that you previously wouldn't have found. And I've seen that with a lot of friends and strangers who share their stories too with me, that you know just go with that little, like maybe that's an interesting avenue. Maybe that class is something that I can learn from, or that person seemed really nice. We had a great conversation. Like, how about I follow that up and, I don't know, see where it might take you. And yeah, I've just never found that to be to come with any downsides either.
Is there something to feeling like that, like you talked about a negative spiral? It is doing a lot of these small incremental positive things. Is there like is there a positive spiral or reverse spiral that actually, when you exercise this muscle, it becomes easier, it becomes more of an impulse that you just do? Because I feel like you are evidence of that, because you're always, very open about the things you apply for, even if you don't get them. You talk about the gift of rejection. So I mean, is there such a thing as a positive spiral?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Maybe that's, yeah, maybe that's a chapter for something in the future. Or I don't know. I personally feel that, yeah, that I guess a spiral would be going, it feels like it's going down. Like it's an upswing, like
It's
I
not a
already
perfect
felt,
metaphor. I was just kind of riff.
yeah, no, I like this. I certainly feel that way. For me, it all starts with like just doing one thing. And then, last night, like I didn't have that much planned for the book release day. I didn't want to have commitments, or had like a deadline, a writing deadline, and so I was working on that. But I didn't really get going until like 5 or 6 p.m. And so then I did one thing. Honestly, it was probably like a chore or something, and then I felt like, oh, I can do other things, and like let me pull up let me pull up this doc and start like researching, for this interview I'm going to do. Let me think about what I might talk about with Rachel. Let me, confirm that meeting tomorrow. Like all of those little things just kind of started to happen after I did one thing that felt like forward motion. For me, like the worst possible state, which I find myself in more than I probably let on, is just like I'm just feel like I'm doing nothing. Like it's the mindless scroll, or just kind of the comparison game of, I got on some website last night and I was like reading all these writer bios, of all of these people who are doing what we do, writing musicals. And I was just like, wow, everyone is like so accomplished, and like they all have gotten all of these like amazing things, and these, taking advantage of all these great opportunities. And I started to feel like bad about myself. And then I was like, this is actually not helping me. Like, why am I like looking for the negative, And I think like getting out of that was like, I'm gonna close the tab and also remember that everyone else has their own like journey to creating work, and reading someone's bio is really not indicative of like all of the work that they've done, or the path to get there. It's a highlight reel, and I think once you actually see people's low light reel, then it makes the comparison game a lot less like potent in your life. But it's a little off topic, but it just
Oh,
feels
that's
fresh
very
to
much
me
on
because that
topic.
just happened.
Honestly, close the tab is very valuable advice.
Close
I
the
have
tab.
closed all of my tabs in order to have, a clear connection here, and I have like 60 tabs open. So and a few of those tabs are probably tabs that could be closed because they make me feel bad about what I haven't done or what I feel like I should do.
Yeah, and it's like why are we seeking that out, And once I if I feel like I'm doing stuff, if I had like written a song that day, or if I had talked to a collaborator, I probably wouldn't have looked at that in the same way. I would have said, "Oh, wow, but maybe I should write down like that fellowship, or maybe I should reach out to that person, and hey, don't we have a mutual friend on Instagram?" And the world is actually, it was bringing up the like scarcity mindset of freelance writing, which is uh, not helpful. And also people in theater, at least I want to find the people who encourage others, and want to work together, and want to like lift each other up, because like it's hard enough to do it, you're like on your own, that why are we sort of instigating a comparison game that just makes it even harder?
So what feels good? You wrote a book called Do It Today, and it came out yesterday. So how does that feel?
Do it tomorrow. It feels great. I think, you know, some other projects like didn't go as planned in the last year, and so when I look back at this, like it feels really nice to have something concrete and something that lives in my hand that I can share with people, that my parents can buy, and that I can hopefully talk to with people. But I also recognize from the first journal, like there's like a very long tail with these things, that it's never going to be, oh my gosh, this is, a bestseller on day one, or I don't know, because it involves other people, it involves the engagement of other people. So if people actually read it and use it and write in it, and it helps them in their day-to-day life, like that would be the ultimate goal for this particular project. And other ones have different goals, and I think like figuring that out, what I want to get from each one has also been important in the last couple of years.
I
But
mean,
it feels great. I mean, it's
part of the
beautiful.
journey.
Tyler Spangler did the illustrations. It's like
Gorgeous. Can you
um,
show us a few before we go? I know you have to leave at 11.
happiness belongs in your hands. I just saw one that felt very appropriate. Oh, there's a good one. Look at all you have. Um, remember all the things that are actually going right in your life. This is really priceless. Thank your failures.
Yes. Can you for our last 2 minutes, can you expand a little bit on thanking your failures? Because you that's a very Marie Kondo. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just write thank you notes when I get failures and rejections, and it makes me feel so much better. It reminds me like the opportunity to figure things out, to apply to whatever thing, to finish the draft, to send it off, to then get rejected. I mean, the process of doing that taught me the most. I mean, sure, it would be great to get accepted to everything, but that's also just not realistic. And sort of, I love closing a loop. If I have open loops everywhere, it's just like an open tab. Like it just takes up space in my brain. So I just noticed, like, if I got rejected from something, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I might just like stew on it and think about it and like, oh my gosh, why this? Like, why not me? And then I was like, I'm just gonna send a thank you, because actually that was a really beneficial process for me to figure something out, in the creating of something to submit. And I sent it, and I felt this immediate release of like weight off of my shoulders, that it just felt, I don't know, I just felt lighter. And it was like, this failure really doesn't say much about who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm going to do, what my plan is, because these things are so subjective and involve so many things that we do not see, that, thinking it and then moving on has always made me feel better. So I can't wait for my next failure, and to send a thank you their way. I'm sure one is imminent, but yeah,
It's
that's
all part
that's
of the
it's
journey.
all part of the journey.
You're amazing. I'm so excited for the book, and I'm so excited to have it properly in my hands as opposed to the PDF that I've nonetheless been very inspired by. So I'm going to go and do something today,
Do
even
it.
though,
What are you gonna do today? Let's have some accountability. What are you gonna do today?
well, I don't know. Like, as you know, we talked about this, and I was like, I don't have the book. Like, maybe we shouldn't do this interview today. And I literally was like, her book is called "Do It Today." We're gonna do it today.
Love
So
it. Yeah.
we did
We
it
did it.
today.
And now we have something. Like, I think that it's a perfect example. And I feel great. I feel very grateful for like, um your questions, and understanding a little bit more about like even where I am in this process. And yeah, then we can just move forward. So thank you. I'm sending you a thank you, although
Um,
hopefully this wasn't a failure.
It's was definitely not. Go to your 11 o'clock. You're very busy, many things to do today. Show us the book one more time. Let's do like a little like a screenshot. Please don't wait. What does that say?
Oh,
Sorry.
that's kind of past isn't present.
Okay.
There you go. That's a
I
good
need
one. I can handle it. You can, and I can. And that's what we're going to do today.
Amazing. Have a great day. Congratulations again. Great
Thanks
to
so
see you.
much. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.